if you're a Tesla owner, it's a lot of this is already done for you.
Yeah.
Again, it's in the vehicle. Essentially, if you're in a Tesla showroom, they can tell you like, hey, if you buy this, you can't screw it up, and I'm not lying. And you have to try to screw it up. And truthfully, because of the systems they built, how the supercharger network works,
Yeah.
that's true. And I think that it's still interesting though, is you'll still find on owners groups and just people that are first buying a Model 3 or a Y, you'll see them say, hey, I plugged into this supercharger and it's taken forever compared to the last one I was at. And you'll look at the photograph if they share it on social media and you go, yeah, well, that's an urban supercharger.
Yes.
And immediately it's like, yeah, bro, that's 72 kilowatt. And the person's like, I don't know what that means. It just says supercharger. So in Chargeway language, that's a red 5. That's a red level 5. The red level 6 is across the street, or the red level 7 is on the highway.
Yeah, 7 miles away or something. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so just even that little differentiation will help them go, I get it. They don't need to know all the ins and outs and the bells and whistles. We had one guy tell us in a focus group, he said, look, I get what you're doing because it makes sense to me. I know that a Category 1 hurricane is not going to rip my roof off, but a Category 5 is way more powerful. I said, essentially, because it's too much of a moving target to try to get so specific with kilowatts, because if you say it's a 350 kilowatt station and you hook up with your car and it's only giving you 280 because of some circumstance of weather, state of charge, or what have you, a driver that doesn't know any different is going to say, okay, is my car broken? Is the station broken? If we try to get that specific, it can actually cause more problems.
Yeah, information overload.
Yeah, totally.
There's all two numbers. Like people, I even have trouble understanding what a watt is. What is a watt? How do you explain a watt? Like, and now you're talking about thousands of watts. What does all that mean? And then like with Tesla did a great thing with their cars. I don't know how many other vehicles have this thing where like they translate it to miles per hour. I thought that was genius, because you're like, at the end of the day, you don't really care of how many kilowatt hours. You're like, what does it mean? Like, am I going to be able to get home in 10 minutes or in 2 hours? What is?
Well, and that's the fun part too, is if you watch videos of people when V3 supercharging came out, and it's funny is Tesla's already kind of doing this with how they use that vernacular. Oh, this is V2 supercharging. This is V3 supercharging. So they're already kind of doing something like that. But the videos of people, you hit it on the head, is someone films the screen and they're not screaming like, oh, dude, 250 kilowatt. They're saying, I'm at 1,000 miles per hour for charging. And it's like, that's the number that hits them. So I think that, again, Tesla has done a great job of really showing how you can build the ecosystem. With Chargeway, what we found is that we had to connect the dots for all the other stakeholders that don't already work together, like utilities. We had one guy tell us, he said, I love the idea that I can fill up at home. That's so cool. I have a garage, it's easy, but I've never owned a car that was tethered to my house. I don't want to drive half my tank off and then have to come home. Like, how do I trust this thing like any other car I've ever owned? And, then you got to go find charging away from home. But then the next question is it going to take me 8 hours like it is at home? These little things come up all the time. So we're just trying to answer that agnostically and holistically for every brand. It doesn't matter if it's a network like Electrify America or ChargePoint or Greenlots, or if it's a brand like Volkswagen, Chevy, or Nissan.
So. Yeah. Have you gotten any feedback or response from any of the car manufacturers? I know you said you were doing something at a dealership or at the dealerships. Which car manufacturer has been more appreciative or more accepting of your efforts?
We've met with basically every major OEM at this point
really?
in regards to Chargeway. Yeah, so they all know that they have to figure out the customer engagement and education part, mainly because they have to educate dealers and the customers.
Yeah.
So we've met with most of them at this point. Some we're in deeper conversations with regard to just product planning and where they're taking things. We've been working alongside BMW as an example. They've been engaging us with dealerships where we can deploy our Chargeway beacon to get more testing done. And so they've been very proactive. A few other brands we're talking to just about where their product planning is down the pipeline include others like Jaguar and Ford, Volvo. And so there are always, again, conversations every single week about, okay, we've now learned what you guys discovered maybe a little bit ago, so how can we work together? And so it's our job then to paint the picture for how our solutions work for them, and in turn we'll connect them to where they sell cars regionally, which means they have to connect to the utilities. And so it's a very interwoven system for how we communicate it. And we realized that Tesla pulled it off because they have their own ecosystem. They have a moat around it. You just live in Tesla's world and you're fine. But everybody else has to live in this connected world where if you're driving one car, you want to connect to dozens of networks. And each network is trying to connect to dozens of auto brands. And so we are trying to make it so that everybody can speak a language that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, that is really confusing. For a while, I had a Chevy Volt. I can't pronounce the V.
Volt with a V.
With a V, yeah. So I mean, it was a great car because you didn't have to charge it if you didn't want to. You could just fill it up with gas and go, right? Yeah. But of course, being an EV enthusiast, I always like, oh, that's fine. And it was hard to understand all the networks that were out there. Like I even till this day, I really don't know. I can't tell them apart. Which ones are the good ones? Which ones are the ones that are sketchy? I know that a lot of them suffer from stations that are broken all the time. So it would become very confusing, I think, for the average person that is going to get into an electric car. All that goes away with the Tesla, because we also own a Tesla now, and it's like you just look at the map and there you go, right?
Oh yeah, no. Well, Tesla made it so mindless, which is what you unfortunately need to provide to the mass market. If we're talking about transitioning to clean energy, we're talking about changing the carbon footprint for everybody, but that requires consumers to shop differently for products and services. Yeah. And again, the competition that we're up against, it's not cars really. It really is the fueling experience that people have been accustomed to for decades.
Yeah.
It really is. So when people say range anxiety, I always say, well, it's more like fuel anxiety. Yeah. Because in reality, cars and gas have been like peanut butter and jelly for like the last century. We're just trying to get people to think of electric cars kind of like peanut butter and honey. It's like, okay, you still want the peanut butter, but it's this just new way of doing it, but it's not actually that different. And that's what Tesla pulled off really well. And that's what we're trying to solve for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, but Tesla had to spend lots of money. I mean, they went at it all alone, right? Alone, and they have so many stations within 10-mile radius of my house, there's 2 superchargers. Yeah. And I'm in Southern California, I guess, so that's just like understandable, I guess. But there are like dead spots or black holes of where like no charging is available.